Hey everybody, it's Brett from Moonstream Crypto. Just want to give you guys an update on the markets, where I think Bitcoin may be going, what to expect going into the weekend. We'll also take a look at Solana and a couple out of the altcoins, as well as a new study, a new research report that I've just written, and I'll give you guys a way to get a hold of that. So with Bitcoin here, it kind of sandwiched between a sell and buy zone. The sell zone here in red, pretty sizable sell zone between 87K and 91K on the daily time frame. Again, we've just visualized where the limit orders are on the order books. Still see support around 77K, 76K, so we could dip down in that region already formed back here and tested in April. Still a possibility of down around 70K. We'll talk about that, but I think we're heading higher. The TLDR here is that things are percolating, starting to look good. I think it's probably a couple of weeks around that May 5th, May 7th market cycle, daily, weekly cycle lows. We'll have a look at that, and that sort of fits my timelines. So it's a good time to be patient and go out and enjoy the weather a bit. I don't see much happening in the near term. However, rejecting at the 50-day exponential moving average. We use the analogy, I call it the thick ice. If you're going out on the lake, you want to be on the thick ice and not thin ice. The 21-day is sort of your thin ice. So sometimes you can walk on it. Over here acted as support, and then support, and then falling through that thin ice. You're in trouble here. A little bit of drowning going on. Came down, landed on the thick ice. That's a stronger support. But when you start to lose the thin ice and the thick ice, that 50-day exponential moving average, then really it's in trouble. Price usually will have a hard time getting back above that. So think of it as underwater, trying to break up above the ice here, and of course getting rejected. So all this considered sort of drowning area. So until we get back above the 50-day exponential moving average, I think there's still a chance, that we head lower again, put in some stronger support, either in a double bottom or a higher low. I'm starting to see higher lows in a couple coins. That is somewhat encouraging. On the, I'll just draw this out a bit. This is just a squiggle here that I think is probably likely come down and retest that 76K region, push up back into this sell zone around 87 and 90K. Not sure who that is or why, but also seeing a fair amount of sell pressure on the total market cap across the board and all of the coins, especially though Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I'm not a big bull for Ethereum. I'm much more bullish on Solana, and we'll have a quick look at that as well. So pushing up here into this region, probably reject, and hopefully we'll get back above these moving averages. Typically when the EMA ribbon gets really tight is when the big move's happening. So it's really starting to form that, and maybe we just linger around a little bit to get above these before taking off. But we can see in previous examples where this really takes off when it gets back above those EMAs, the EMA ribbon. These are just different time frames, exponential moving averages, and then it's off to the races. So I'll turn that off just to keep the chart clean. But that's what I think. I'd love to see us come down, put in a higher low, and then take off and really get going. But as of now, it's hard to say. A little bit overbought on our oscillators on the daily time frame. The weekly time frame is where the real momentum is, and so a little bit encouraging, but still rejecting at this kind of support resistance area, which is the midpoint of this prior vector candle back here. And so typically these things do retest, sometimes act as support and resistance. So I'd really like to see that get above there, and then back above that 21-week exponential moving average, but still seeing that sell pressure up in this range. However, what is bullish, this is what most people can't see. These two signals of ours we have, or three signals rather, our early reversal indicator here, and what I believe that is picking up on is institutional programmatic buying and selling. And then when it coincides with our RSI Pro, which is showing bullish divergence, so that's a second factor. And then we have a trend strength indicator. These are all custom signals that we have. But when it breaks above 20 is usually my trigger. That's what I'm looking for on the weekly time frame. So just going back here, it only happens a few times. And so we had September of 2023, so we could see back in there, that was a great time to get into Bitcoin. Had a massive run up from 27K up over 100,000. And then prior to that, this excellent entry in Jan of 2023, this is also where I was pounding the table to get back into the markets, because we had a monthly early reversal signal that's only triggered 4 times in the history of Bitcoin. And I'll get back to that, but let me just show this to you so you can have some confidence in these. If I go to a longer time frame chart, it'll show up. But these show always at the bottom of the bear market. We had them down here, and then there's further data over to the left. So this is why well, few people are bullish now. I'm looking for a bullish move here in the near future. Again, showing that weekly exponential or weekly early reversal indicator and potentially setting us up for some nice gains and a doubling of Bitcoin still in the cards, you guys. I'll show some charts shortly that shows that in the time scale of the 4-year cycle, it's very normal where we are right before Bitcoin goes vertical and often doubles. So in my research report, I talk about 150K, 180K, maybe even 200K still in the cards with this cycle. A lot of tailwinds setting up. Just need to get past some hurdles and things like that. So very important, watching this very carefully there. Let's jump over to the IBIT temporarily, the 4-hour IBIT. This, of course, is the BlackRock IBIT ETF, and these gaps throughout this history have mostly filled. We had a brief period where they weren't filling, but what this means is where there's a fair value gap and an imbalance, it acts as a magnet to pull price up to it. So here we gapped down on the IBIT, and then the price is pulled back up to fill that gap. And now we're hitting the upper range of the downtrending channel. Do see some buy levels here, which is encouraging. So I'm also watching for this kind of a move where it breaks out above this trend channel, retests, and starts taking out these resistance levels. So that would be ideal. However, still have an unfilled gap down here about, say, 10-15%, actually 20% below we are now. So that would coincide with $16,000 lower on Bitcoin, right around that 70K range. So a little bit inconclusive there. If I do go to a daily chart, it's a little bit more interesting. But also telling in that this downtrending channel is kind of rejecting here. So, I do think we pull back down on this range, pull back at least 10%, and find some support there before going higher. So moving right along, just looking at a weekly chart, 1-hour and 4-hour charts showing the resistance zones. These are all sellers lining up again from this 84K to 86K. It overlaps somewhat. It's not exactly the same as the daily. Also showing some weakness here on the trend strength indicator on the 4-hour chart. So I do expect some downward pressure on Bitcoin going into the weekend, and we'll just have to see. So let's take a look at some other coins, and let's dive into Solana here. Solana's looking very interesting. I'll jump back to the daily chart here momentarily. And oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to show you something here, which we'll touch on in a moment. Coming back to this, and I turn this image back on. So this is the M2 global money supply. And I'll show this, I go into more detail on the research report that I wrote. But if you're not familiar with this, Bitcoin's price tends to follow the price of the M2 global money supply. So here we can see that M2 was coming down and a leading indicator, and now M2 has been going up for about 8 to 12 weeks, which is typically the advanced lag that it has. So Bitcoin should start turning higher here. I'll talk about it in the report and how you can get that. And here's a quick look at it. It's a new 2025 version of my Blood in the Streets report that I initially released in 2022, December of 2022, right before that Jan 23 time to get in. And I was saying it's time to buy when there's blood in the streets. People thought I was crazy, but we nailed that entry. So I've rewritten a new version of this, and you can get your hands on this at moonstream.io/report, and that'll take you into the actual page, but that's easy to remember. So moonstream.io/report, and that looks like this, where I go into some details, quick story of how I got into crypto. My $20,000 happy hour in 2013 is now my $83,000 happy hour. Talk about this. Also some other stories here, but the cycle of investor emotions, where we are in this path, and the Wyckoff patterns, which are playing out again. I think we're getting into an accumulation pattern again, once again with this, after hitting resistance in this 100K level. So this is where, make no mistake, this is where institutions and whales have been accumulating on this sell-off. So it does point toward a massive rally, new all-time high, maybe some pullbacks, and then that sort of bull mania and even a melt-up, which not many people are talking about. You've heard of meltdowns. A melt-up is in the cards, so we just have to see and let this play out a bit. This chart here shows the 4-year cycle each cycle, so 2012, 16, 2020, and now. And we can see that we're right in this range of pullback, which is normal, where the price is pushed up and then it's come back down a bit, sometimes 40, 50% in the old cycles, but just as it's ready to take off, and I think we're right there about 140 to 150 days after the halving. But of course, I also talk about the M2 money, global M2 global M2 money supply as I mentioned here. That same chart I just showed you, a better description of why that works, how that money trickles down into things like Bitcoin and risk on assets. So I encourage you to go ahead and get that research report. It's really short, and I got some nice visuals in here to break things up. Here's from Baron Rothschild, who's famously quoted as saying, "The time to buy is when there's blood in the streets." And we don't have as much blood in the streets as we once did in 2022, but we're right there. And of course, Warren Buffett saying, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." And right now, there's a lot of fear in the markets. Fear and greed index has been around 30 as of yesterday, and it's been as low as as low as 15 recently on March 10th. So that's typically when things reverse. On the flip side, extreme greed is near market highs. So back in November, when we were kind of pushing up toward highs around that November 5th Trump election time frame, also a weekly cycle low, pushed up and got into greed territory. So then again, from there we sold off. So go ahead and get that. It's moonstream.io/report. So again, I talk about this M2 global money supply, how that is impacted and how that typically impacts price. But I think we're right here. If I were to overlay that, sometimes if I put my mouse on there, maybe I saw it there for a second. The price action sometimes moves in there. So this is similar to where we are. I think that we're going to start pushing higher here based on that M2 global money supply. Very interesting. So with that in mind, let's jump over to Solana and take a quick look here on the daily. Solana is encouraging. It's come down. It did lose that 125 support zone, which had held so well through this area, but that's okay. Often at the big market reversals, we'll see a throw under or a throw over to kind of fake out or flush out all the weekends. Came down into this other support zone. I was buying at $100 right in this range, and I've been holding Solana. I'd like to see it above that 50-day exponential moving average, but looking good, pushing stronger on the daily, maybe getting a little bit overbought, but the weekly's looking really good. We have our early reversal indicator, and this is all about alignment. If you see these other arrows in here, they're not as meaningful unless they align with the other signals. So I won't get into that here, but we are seeing some alignment here on the weekly and saw the ERI, the trend strength indicator. Again, I'm waiting for that to get back above 20, and I have an alert that says up 20, buy. That's when I'll be going heavy on Solana. I do see some big things coming from Solana soon. Also looking strong, interestingly, has been Helium coin. That weekly TSI, which I'll get back to in a minute, little overbought on the daily. It's one of those things aligned that the big magic happens, but we're seeing a money flow box here. So this indicates big money coming in, and you can see this downtrending parallel channel has now broken to the upside. And usually they'll break out and then retest. So I think Helium is sort of gearing up here for the next major move, even though there isn't a whole lot of news about this, but also seeing our other signals aligning and that trend strength indicator above 20 already. So, I've gotten to the point. Show me the charts. I'll tell you the news. Our signal line crossover. This incorporates a MACD and a number of other signals all in one. So you don't have to know and watch too many things, but we can see the last time that these crossed, nice push up on Helium. And so that's another one I'm watching. Aptos also looking interesting, but not as much as before. I want to see that kind of break up above that parallel channel. So I'm not going to go through all of these, just some ones I'm watching like Stacks. Filecoin I had sold out of, but I just re-entered Filecoin because going back to the daily chart on this, and let's see if I can open this up a bit here. That's not it. I'll just see so it's easier to read, because Filecoin has had a very wide range of price. And so what you want to watch for here is I'm seeing an early reversal indicator there, a bullish engulfing candle, and a higher low. So these are the things to watch for when you're looking at your charts. And I'm just kind of waiting for the other time frames to start to align. Going to the weekly chart real quick, which I had mentioned a minute ago, not quite there yet, so I'm buying a little bit early. But the reasoning with like Filecoin has huge potential, even up to sort of a relative high from prior cycle, has potential 45x. But if it can really hit its higher targets on the Fibonacci time frame, we're looking at possibly 300x. I'm not saying that's going to happen or happen this cycle, but very interesting charts there that I've been watching. I forgot to mention also, because I've got it on my other screen here, I will go back over to Bitcoin, and there's only so many hours in the day to look at these things, but on the weekly time frame, let me put this away and hide that for a moment. On the weekly time frame, Bitcoin is pulled back right to a key Fibonacci level. And that I discovered here looking at this, playing around. So let's open this up so it's easier for you guys to see, and then we'll wrap things up here to keep things going. But look at this. So based on the Fibonacci, if we grab it from this cycle low there and up to this high and really get it close, when I want to go right to that high, it's hard to get, but we came right down to the golden pocket on this, which is something the day traders use quite a bit, and that is the 0.618 to the 0.65, a retracement. If you're new to Fibonacci's and you want to learn more about some of these things and trainings, we've just launched a new academy at moonstreamacademy.com/start, but that's not the purpose of this video. It's just, if Fibonacci's are used widely all over, you probably have heard of Fibonacci's, whether they're self-fulfilling or not. This golden pocket here, price came right down and touched that. Now we could still see a pull back into that zone, that 73 zone, really to fill that golden pocket. That's typically where those bounces happen. All right, we'll have to see, and just patience is the name of the game right now. I had gotten into about 50% cash last week when I saw the weakness in the altcoins, and now I'm starting to dabble to get back into these. So other than that, not seeing a whole lot going on in the markets, nothing terribly exciting. So it's a good weekend to take some time off, go outside, relax, and we'll talk to you guys next week and update you then. But do go over and get that moonstream.io/report. 2025 edition, I think you'll find it valuable. And other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this content, make sure to hit subscribe and put the bell notification on so you'll be notified every time Max comes out with a new video or when I'm doing an update. That would be great. And of course, like the video, kind of helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people, and I think that would be helpful for more people to see these things, and specifically the TA that we're doing here. All right, well, thanks so much. We'll see you guys next week. Hope you have a great weekend.